Alcimar. Eu moro aqui na comunidade Santa Maria. Eu desde os 14 anos que eu trabalho em Copaíba. Eu estou com 37 anos. Todo o tempo o meu trabalho é Copaíba.
Das árvores ganhamos um presente que nos dá vida, a vida das árvores. Das árvores ganhamos ar e sombra, saúde e sabedoria, um dom que vem das árvores. Das árvores, das árvores.
Todo cara trabalhar aqui porque aqui é perto, mas tem dia que a gente vai longe no meio dessa mata aí, chega só de tardezinha em casa.
Você vem tirar o óleo dessa água?
Não, cada mês.
Cada mês?
Às vezes ela dá meio litro, menos de meio litro, conforme o tempo, né? Quando a gente passar mais tempo a estondear, mais a óleo ela dá.
We have a lot of different compounds in copaiba, just like we do all of the essential oils. But we have one compound that's dominant, beta-caryophyllene. Now this is important because it has strong effect and benefit for helping the body to sustain normal inflammatory responses. This is a keystone of our health. This is a keystone of what many of us will deal with on an ongoing basis. We have other oils that have similar chemistry, and in fact that exact same compound. Black pepper and melissa are good examples. Even oregano has some of this compound, but by comparison, very small amounts. That makes this oil unique. Additional benefits that it has is it's really good for skin. It can be calming and soothing in a number of different ways. I'm excited for people to have their own experience with copaiba, and I hope that they develop as much enthusiasm for it as I personally have, because I believe this will become one of the most beneficial essential oils that we have in doTERRA.
Doterra pra você.
And now, please welcome to the stage, doTERRA Founding Executive, President, and Chief Financial Officer, Corey Lindley.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to our afternoon session. I trust everyone had a great lunch and maybe a wonderful yoga experience with our new collection of yoga oils. I had my first yoga experience a few months ago. I don't think my body's designed to do many of those moves that they ask us to do. I fell over 4 or 5 times as I tried to balance on one leg. The part I liked the best was the peaceful relaxation and meditation at the end. I think I had about a 5-minute nap during that part. It took me back to my days of naps in kindergarten when we'd have a nap on a pad. Maybe my kindergarten teacher had it all figured out when she'd have us all take a short nap on a pad, and I think maybe that's what we need to do, is take a nap on a yoga pad every day. Well, we have a lot of work to do, so let's get started this afternoon. I have 3 main objectives that I want to present today. First, we're going to talk about doTERRA's growth and some positive new announcements from a logistics perspective. Second, we're going to talk about sourcing and some of our latest developments around the world. And finally, we're going to talk about healthcare, building on what Dave talked about and Doc and Emily mentioned briefly this morning. As we talk about our growth as a company, I want everyone to realize that for us, what growth means is that our vision of taking essential oils to every home is continuing to be realized. It isn't about dollars and cents for us, but rather, for us, growth is about lives, about how many lives are being impacted. Those lives include the lives of our growing employee base, those that tens of thousands that harvest our essential oils, and equally or more importantly, the lives of our millions of customers. This first slide focuses on the growth in enrollments since doTERRA started in 2008. Nothing happens in doTERRA unless we have customers. You can see from this chart that we'll surpass 1 million enrollments this year. That's 1 million people and their families that now experience the benefits of essential oils in their lives that didn't know about doTERRA just a year ago. With so many new customers and our 60 to 70% retention rate, it's obvious that our sales are increasing. You can see from this chart that our growth is continuing, and even doing so, if you look closely, at an accelerated pace in 2017. It's interesting to see how our size, we passed 1 billion this week, but how our size compares to other popular brands like Dunkin' Donuts or Lyft or Pinterest or my teenage daughter's favorite, Snapchat, right? While our growth is impressive in many ways, we really feel like doTERRA's just beginning, as there are so many lives yet to be impacted for the better with doTERRA essential oils. We're growing in the United States, but we're also growing internationally. Dave talked a little bit about this morning, but let me show you in a little more depth. As you look at this chart, you can see that when we started in 2008, 98% of our sales were in the United States, and the other 2% were in Canada. Have any Canadians here? Yeah, we love the Canadians. By 2010, we had started early development in Taiwan, in Europe, in Australia, and even in Japan, as international routes were being developed for doTERRA. We then continued to grow and expand internationally, while our U.S. business was also growing at a rapid pace. By 2012, 23% of our business was international. By 2016, 29% of our business was international, as our China business really started to grow. This year, 39% of our business is coming from overseas, and we expect that our international market growth will continue to increase, all while we continue to experience impressive growth in the United States. In looking at the global world of doTERRA, you can see we're experiencing tremendous growth around the world. Compound annual growth rates, or CAGRs, are essentially the average annual growth rate over the periods of time listed in the chart. We truly are changing the world as more and more essential oils are taken to homes and families in now more than 120 countries around the world. With all this growth, it's important to realize that while the percentage of growth rates are exciting in each of our international markets, in terms of real growth in customers and sales, our highest growth is right here in the United States and Canada. Yeah. What this means is while the U.S. and Canada are larger and more mature than many of our international markets, the overall growth opportunity here in North America is still the largest. And I might add that with all that's happening in the United States in terms of new products, our healthcare initiatives, and the continued need for Americans to take control of their own health, we believe that we'll continue to have more overall growth coming from the United States and Canada than any other market in years to come. U.S. is where it's at right now. The work of supporting this global growth is tremendous. We have an amazing team of dedicated professionals that focus on ensuring that we get our oils from farmers to families, right? A key part of this effort is ensuring that we have adequate inventory in our warehouses to support you. It's always unfortunate when we temporarily run out of stock, but we're currently in stock more than 99% of the time, and our goal is to be at 100% and stay there. Yes, we are continuing to invest in inventory, particularly of key essential oils, in order to make this happen. As this chart shows, the number of orders we're now shipping in the United States, reaching 1 million orders a month when we do BOGOs, as Dave mentioned, continues to grow at a significant pace. This is just in the United States. As you know, we currently distribute out of 2 different facilities. About 40% of our orders are shipped out of a facility in Salt Lake City, Utah, with 60% of our orders now coming out of a facility in Atlanta, Georgia. Yeah. The central and eastern part of the U.S. have been our fastest growing areas in recent years. Yeah. Earlier today, Dave mentioned that we've announced plans to build our own distribution facility very near our corporate campus in Pleasant Grove, Utah. This will be a state-of-the-art automated facility, increasing our efficiency in getting your orders to you in a timely manner. We've done some benchmarking work in looking at how we're doing with logistics in our distribution efforts. You can see how we compare to some of the major brand companies in terms of shipping products to our customers. Our goal is to equal and then beat Amazon Prime's 2-day shipping, right? We're not there yet, but we're getting close. Over the past 5 years, we've reduced our shipping time by 24% from an average of 3.2 days down to 2.4 days, all while getting better and better at actually shipping you what you ordered, okay? I know that doesn't always happen, but we try. Okay, this analysis assumes orders at 2.4 days, assumes orders being placed before 10 a.m. on a given day, and as many of the orders are automated loyalty reward orders, the majority of our orders each day do come in before 10 a.m. But our goal is to get to 2 days on average. So here's the plan. We plan to add a new shipping facility in Dallas, Texas. Yes. This will be coming in 2018 and will allow us to have next day delivery for the many orders in the great state of Texas and nearby states. Yes. We're excited to continue to improve service levels. And in future years, additional distribution centers in other parts of the continental U.S. may be added. Well, they will be added. But by adding Dallas as a shipping point for orders and having next day delivery in Texas, we're confident we can reduce the shipping time on average from 2.4 days down to 2.1 days, which increases our improvement to 34% faster shipping over the last 6 years. Is that great? So, as we regionalize our distribution centers and move a third of our volume through each distribution site, we'll improve delivery times for all of our customers. But as you look at this map, I think there's something else that we can do to improve our service levels. All right. We have a few people here from Alaska and Hawaii, right? Yeah. In early 2018, we plan to add distribution sites in both Oahu and in Anchorage, right? And I might add that unlike our distribution points in Atlanta and Dallas, these sites will provide 2 services. First, we'll ship orders to the islands of Hawaii and throughout Alaska from these sites. But in addition, these will be pickup locations where our product, like at our product center at our campus, customers will be able to pick up their orders on the day they order. All right? How many of you want to visit our product center in Hawaii? Right? Yeah. We trust that these centers will be very busy locations in Oahu as well as in Anchorage, 2 of my very favorite places in the world, by the way. All right, let's now talk about co-impact sourcing for a few minutes. I hope you can all see the picture that's on the screen. This is not an actual photo, but is rather a painting by a very accomplished artist friend of mine. And it's why I love Nepal, where I've been to traveling on 2 different occasions to assist in our co-impact sourcing work in that great nation. I love the detail in this painting of the Himalayan mountain range with Mount Everest in the background. I love seeing the terrace farming areas that are so prevalent throughout Nepal. As you look closely, you can see a house that was destroyed by the earthquake, reminding me that there is much work still to be done in helping our Nepalese friends recover from the devastating earthquake of a few years ago. Of course, the essential oil steel that's shown there is masterfully shown as a reminder of where we get our wintergreen essential oil. However, the part that I love the most about this painting, which now hangs in my office at Doterra, is the people that are shown. The look of hope in their eyes speaks to me and reminds me that ultimately our co-impact sourcing work is about more than just procuring amazing essential oils. It's about all those that work so hard to provide us with these oils. I love the focus on mothers and women. Every time I travel to Nepal, I leave a charge with my sourcing team to find ways to increase wages for the women who do the harvesting. Yeah. And we're making that happen, I can tell you. They're receiving much more than they did just several years ago. Anyway, I love this picture, and as it now hangs from the wall in my office, I want to always remember what our co-impact sourcing work is all about. It's about improving lives. Here's an update slide showing all the places in the world where we currently source essential oils, with 39 of our most popular oils highlighted. Our sourcing team truly does circle the globe in finding and working with our sourcing partners around the world. This slide highlights the 12 major areas where we have co-impact sourcing projects that are ongoing. Each area is unique, and in each area we're providing jobs to tens, hundreds, and even thousands or tens of thousands of families. You'll note we've added new projects in Egypt and Albania, where we're partnering with growers in these developing nations to bring us some amazing oils. During the past year, our sourcing team held a global sourcing summit where we had representatives from 14 different countries participating who are all part of our global botanical network. I just had lunch with many of them today. These are some of our most key sourcing partners some of you have met. These great partners met together in Bulgaria at our Doterra facility and were hosted there by our wonderful general manager, Plamen Nikolov, and his team. These growers came from New Zealand, from Guatemala, from Africa, from Oman, from China, and various countries throughout Europe. The focus of the meetings was primarily based on 3 things. First, the focus was on purity and quality. That's always first and foremost with our growers and our sourcing team. We will never compromise on issues of purity or quality. Second, there was a focus on increasing capacity. We're focused on the future and on ensuring we can supply our growing essential oil needs for decades to come. Finally, there was a great discussion on how we can improve lives in the process. Improving the lives of families, of the growers, and the communities in which they live was the focus of that meeting. It's always great to have like-minded people come together to change the world. And our Global Botanical Network and sourcing team are doing that in significant ways. One of the big takeaways from this summit was adding to our sourcing guidelines that we mentioned last year at convention. In addition to generating jobs, providing fair and on-time payments, building supplier capacity, and sustaining long-term partnerships with each of our growers. In the co-impact areas of the world, we promote fair labor, we ensure fair labor conditions, promote cooperatives, ensure environmental stewardship, and facilitate community development. These are the 8 key sourcing guidelines that govern how we source essential oils. To these, we are now adding a co-impact sourcing scorecard where we track performance and report on that in the coming year in sourcetoyou.com. We also have added a supplier code of conduct, setting ethical standards that must be met in order to continue to participate with Doterra. Yeah. Finally, we have an annual report wherein we'll be able to be more effective in tracking and reporting on all the progress we're making around the world. One of the great examples of our commitment to co-impact sourcing rests with our Doterra distillation facilities on the outskirts of Dobrich, Bulgaria. Here are some of the pictures of the facility where Doterra has been able to build in a very short period of time the most technologically advanced distillery in all of Bulgaria for the distilling of lavender, melissa, blue chamomile, yarrow, and different seed oils. This is an overhead view also of the whole Doterra complex, where you can see the brand new building that just completed this past summer, where we're storing and now distilling our frankincense resins coming from Somalia. This has been amazing progress when you consider that none of the infrastructure existed on this site just 21 months ago when I was there to break ground. We've had several co-impact sourcing trips to this beautiful part of the country in July of this year during the lavender harvest, and some of you were able to participate and see the developments in this facility. But let's run this video to give everyone an update on what's happening at Doterra.
Doterra was years in the development. It really started when we were getting involved in primary sourcing of our essential oils and we wanted to do good in the world. We looked at Bulgaria as the place where lavender comes from. It's our #1 selling oil. It's a key product for us, a key oil, and the agriculture environment there made it just ideal for us to put our first distillation facility overseas.
We set up operations for Doterra just over 2 years ago, and during that time we've been able to not only improve the supply chain, how it's functioned in the past, but we've really been able to develop a new line of business and a new way of thinking and a new standard in Bulgaria that really is raising the bar for all the other farmers and producers there.
With our initial distillations, we've already broken the records in Bulgaria for oil yields. Farmers are really excited, the word's spreading, people want to be here. The last couple of weeks of the harvest season, we've had lavender just overflowing the distillery, on the ground, 10 feet high here. People have been real busy. It's just been a lot of excitement. It's been a lot of fun.
Melissa was not traditionally grown in any kind of commercial scale anywhere in the world up until very recently. Bulgaria has had a rich tradition in producing Melissa, but Doterra really is the largest, most important production unit for Melissa oil anywhere in the world. We are the single largest producer of Melissa oil and also buyer of Melissa oil from other harvesters and distillers that are working in the Bulgaria area. Through all of this, we really have been able to ensure that we can consistently meet our oil quality that we are looking for, and it really is unmatched compared to any other aromatherapy company in the world.
This is the Melissa field of one of our contracted farmers. Last year we planted this field with him. We are signing 5 years contracts with farmers from the area. We provide the seedlings, we provide the agricultural services, advices. We are offering, in case they need it, the harvest. We provide the transport to the distillation, and of course we buy the oil at the end.
We underestimated the huge demand from the growers to partner with a great company. We knew it was there, but once we got on the ground, the farmers just came in droves, and it's been a great success.
Doterra is a beautiful distillery that has some of the most advanced technological equipment for distillation anywhere in the world. So we thought it was an important strategic move to decide to have our frankincense resins that are sourced from the Amado Mountains in northern Somalia, exported from Somaliland, and shipped to Bulgaria, where they are held in warehouses, stored, and we're able to do distillation 12 months of the year to ensure that we are able to be very hands-on, in this case for frankincense, in the entire supply chain, for where we are very hands-on in the mountains where these resins are being harvested and sourced, all the way to their end distillation happening at a sateri.
I love what we're doing in Bulgaria and how we're truly making a difference there. And by the way, we don't run out of Melissa anymore, right? So that's another good point, right? Thank you, Plamen, and our team in Bulgaria, and many thanks go to Tim Valentiner and Matt Reed and our entire sourcing and operations team. Yeah, they do great work. I'd now like to move to another part of the world and talk in a bit more detail about what we're doing in Kenya. Let me tell you more about our Kenya initiative. To help me do that, please welcome to the stage David Jeru. He's the General Manager of Fair Oils Kenya, a Doterra partner company. David. David, it's great to have you here at the Doterra Convention.
Asante sana Kole. That is meaning so in Swahili, thank you.
Great. It's wonderful to have you here in front of 30,000 people, right?
Yes.
Actually, there's another 10,000 watching online, so we're up to 40,000. So don't be nervous, David.
Yes.
Okay. It's been over a year since I was there, last in Kenya, and I know a lot's changed since then. And as you know, your Fair Oils team have been fully pressing ahead and sourcing initiatives there. Could you tell us a little bit about what's been happening on the ground this past year?
Yes. At the moment, we are focusing on 3 major regions in Kenya. The Mount Kenya region, the Nairobi, and the South Coast. Getting the commercial farm on the coast has been a huge project for us this year. We've had to construct a lot of infrastructure on the farm to ensure that we have enough water and resources to maximize on our essential oil crops. In Africa, you often have to start from the ground up.
Okay.
We've been digging wells, damming the rivers, building water storage facilities and laying irrigation pipes, and constructing the facilities.
Wow, that sounds like a lot of work, David.
Yes.
I'm excited to go back and see the progress that's been made on the farm since I was there last. We have an opportunity with some of our wellness advocate leaders to come and see you in November and see the progress. I'm sure it's going to be a fantastic trip.
Yes.
Okay, so the commercial farm is really exciting, but tell us about how the farm impacts the local community. Could you do that a little bit?
Yeah, sure, yes, Mr. Corey. The south coast of Kenya is really an undeveloped region that continues to experience high levels of poverty. It's really been neglected region and has not developed as quickly as other parts of the country. The farm has already brought lots of jobs to the local community.
Wonderful.
But more importantly, the farm works as an anchor that supports a network of growers. These farmers work hand in hand with the Fair Oils and Doterra to produce essential oil crops through our extensive co-impact sourcing relationship program.
Well, that's wonderful. How many farmers are currently working in this area, and what are they growing?
At the moment, we have around 250 farmers growing ginger and eucalyptus, but our vision is really to ensure over 5,000 essential oil farmers in the whole country within the next few years growing tropical essential oil crops.
Wow, 5,000 farmers is what we're
Yes,
developing.
that's what we are looking.
Isn't that amazing?
Yes.
This is 5,000 families. This is
Yes.
about 20,000 people that are impacted. This is exciting, and Doterra is thrilled with the work being done in Kenya
Yes.
and our co-impact sourcing there. What is it about these projects and this partnership that's so exciting for you, David?
Really, I've worked in the agricultural products for many, many years. But the reason I love working for Fair Oils is because they believe in building a strong, strong team. People matter, particularly in this industry. And I have worked fairly hard to build a strong team at our company, Fair Oils, and to build a strong relationship with our growers. Having a partner like Doterra has been really amazing. It's often difficult to find clients who share your values and believe what you are doing. Doterra has always been so supportive of our efforts to build a sustainable and meaningful essential oil crop in Africa and have a significant impact on the lives of people in my community.
Wow.
Yes. I'm grateful to work for a company that really cares and to have Doterra as a critical partner.
Wow. Well, thank you, David. David is a great manager, and he feeds his employees this surprise chicken that I got to enjoy when I was there. It's amazing, David. You're a great cook. Okay, so one more thing.
Yes, please.
You know, as we've worked together over the years, it's very clear we share the same goals in conducting business in these impoverished communities.
Yes.
During my last visit to Kenya, I met with the teachers and the parents at a local primary school.
Yes.
Right?
Yeah.
We made some commitments in that meeting to support the local schools, right?
Yes.
And to fund some community projects in addition to the job creation we're bringing for the growers.
Yes.
Could you tell us, and finally, a little bit about what Fair Oils and Doterra Healing Hands, the foundation, have been working on?
Really, Healing Hands has funded the expansion of the two primary schools.
Two schools?
Two schools which you visited, which have been very, very crowded.
Wow.
The additional classrooms and the bathroom facilities have been a high help to those children.
Wonderful.
I wasn't with you that time in the school meeting you have mentioned, but I'm told that one of the fathers really, during that meeting, was concerned about the community and how they were crossing the river to the other side.
Yeah.
Healing Hands has funded the construction of a footbridge across the river. That has been a big help to the children and the community in safely crossing the river from our farm.
Well, that's wonderful.
Yes. And additionally, we are constructing a community center on the farm where the community can hold events and where we can hold training meetings with our farmers to help them improve their crop yields and increase their income.
Wow.
Yeah, we have so many more things to do in this region, and the Doterra support has really been great. We are excited about the future projects, and really being a force for good in this community.
Wow, thank you, David. We appreciate all you're doing in Kenya. And thank you for traveling from Kenya to here to be with us. Can we give David from Fair Oils another round of applause? Thank you, David.
Thank you so much.
Take care. David is really a remarkable person and has an amazing team, and we're excited to introduce them to some of our leaders. And you want to be watching Facebook in November when we're there. I'm sure there'll be a lot of posts. It's great to have business partners like David and the entire Fair Oils team that are 100% aligned with our sourcing model. Doterra and our partner Fair Oils have engaged a highly trained local team overseen by professors at the University of Oxford in the UK to conduct a multi-year longitudinal study measuring the impact of our co-impact sourcing initiatives in this area. This monitoring and evaluation data give us access to important information on how to better tailor our initiatives to achieve the best poverty-reducing outcomes. we'll look forward to the published report of this work in the years to come. It's very exciting. Okay, I want to conclude today by spending the remainder of my time on our new healthcare initiative. Dave, Emily, and Doc have talked about our movement into healthcare today, and I want to build on what they've talked about and give you a few details, okay? But I have to tell you, I really believe that the initiatives that we're announcing today, with some of the supporting data I'm going to share with you, these are things the world needs to hear about. We are going to revolutionize healthcare in our country, okay? For me, the genesis of why I'm so excited about our initiatives rests with the people that I love the most, who are my family. We had the opportunity, my wife and I, this past summer, to have all 22 of us, including children, spouses, and grandchildren, together. This was the first time we were all together in 5 years, so it was a great having us all together. My wife, Janice, and I love our children and our grandchildren. As we go on our morning walks together, it seems that the majority of our conversation is about the welfare of each member of our family. This has been particularly true this year as we had 2 grandchildren born a few months ago, each of them needing to spend a week in newborn intensive care units. And I'm so grateful for those units, and I'm grateful my grandchildren are healthy. Earlier this year, though, our 4th daughter, Haley, gave us some exciting news. Yes, Haley and her husband, James, are really in the downline duplication mode here, all right? Because they announced they were going to have triplets. And just 1 week ago, from today, we moved from having 10 grandchildren to having 13 grandchildren. Aren't these the cutest triplets you've ever seen? Parley Ted, Tilly Jane, and Elsie Kate were born a week ago, 3.5 pounds, and my wife Janice is there to help support Haley, and I'm pleased to report that babies, the mother, and even the grandmother are doing great. Yeah. I have to tell you a cute story about Haley and James, who now live in Michigan. One evening a few weeks ago, they were out for ice cream, a rather expected craving for a soon-to-be mother of triplets, all right? And while in the ice cream shop, they met a couple whom they began visiting with. The couple soon found out they were expecting triplets and offered to pay for James and Haley's ice cream, which was so kind of them. The couple asked James and Haley where they were from originally, and they told them they were from Utah. The couple said, "Oh, we love Utah. It's become one of our favorite places we go to every year." James and Haley asked why they go to Utah each year, and the couple said, "Have you ever heard of Doterra? We go to the convention every year, and we love it there. Aren't Doterra folks just amazing people wherever we go? You guys are the best, I have to tell you." Thank you to that couple from Michigan for taking care of my expectant daughter and her husband. Okay, back to our subject at hand, but I can't help talking about how you're all amazing. Anyway, one of the things that worries me about the future of my family is all the challenges with healthcare in our world. Sure, we have essential oils, and they're a huge support to our family for sure. Whether it's supporting the health of my teenage daughter, who's a cross-country runner with her thyroid challenges, or a son-in-law who has carpal tunnel issues, or my grandchildren's scrapes, bumps, bruises, and other health issues, I am so thankful that we have Doterra products to provide support. But what concerns me most about our health care in our country is that life expectancy is declining. For the first time in all of our lifetimes, our children are now expected to live for a shorter period of time than us. In addition, and this is a big one to me and with my financial mind, and should be to any of you who get tired of paying more and more taxes, the money that we are spending in the United States on health care, with healthcare going backwards in so many ways, is significantly higher than any other developed nation. I might add that we also have fewer doctors than most developed countries, and the problem is compounded because not only is the care we are getting not always the best, getting access to the support of doctors is getting to be more and more challenging. Yet for all of that, we pay more than anyone else. Go figure. How does that work? It gets worse. As a nation, our spending on prescription drugs has gone up by 84% in the last decade. Out-of-pocket health care costs for families has nearly doubled, and nearly 20% of our nation's entire GDP is spent on healthcare, yet it's not working. As noted in the prior slide, that's double what most any other developed nation spends. Then with that mess, we have a political system in our country that's more concerned about tweets, the meaning of tweets, and should the president even tweet? Really? What are we talking about? Why are we talking about this stuff? Let's fix our problems, okay? You know, it's all enough to get someone very discouraged, all right? But doTERRA has the answer. Let me show you why I am so confident that we have the solution. You and I both know that doTERRA and healthcare are a natural fit. We have each experienced the amazing healthcare benefits of our essential oils in our lives. But let me show you how we are now beginning to show the world why doTERRA is the answer to this mess. At doTERRA, we provide health insurance to many full-time employees at our Pleasant Grove campus. We have 833 full-time employees and their families that are on our healthcare benefit plan. We have a national healthcare firm that we work with that's provided us some data points on the health of our employees, who all love and use essential oils, by the way. And the data is truly phenomenal. As a way of background, I want to tell you that we're largely self-insured on healthcare for our employees. We have some stop-loss coverage for catastrophic events, but for the most part, we're self-insured, and so we clearly know all the costs. What the national healthcare firm did was compare doTERRA data regarding the health of our essential oil loving and using employees and the amount we spend on their health care to the database of millions of insured lives, very few of whom use essential oils as much as our employees, right? But that are comparable in age and demographics. Remember, these are similar demographic pools. As you all know, we have a young employee population, but you need to remember that the comparison was to other employers who also have a young population. Anyway, this healthcare firm reported that the national average cost of healthcare for each employee of a similar demographic to doTERRA is $13,488 per year. So, how does that compare to doTERRA's employees who all use essential oils and our other wellness products regularly? Our cost for the past year was only $6,604 per employee. That is less than half the cost. Our healthcare firm said they've never seen any company come close to being this low in their healthcare spend. But wait, it gets even more interesting the deeper you dig. If we look at the biggest segment of these costs, you'll see that it relates to services. The national average for this segment is $8,598, which is for doctor's visits, hospital stays, lab tests, etc. It's a pretty large number and the biggest part of a spend for employees' health. So how do you think doTERRA fares? For our employees, the cost of services is only $3,982. That's 54% less. Our essential oil loving and using employee base has fewer doctor's visits, fewer hospital stays, fewer illnesses, and better overall health. And I might add that this lower cost even considers the fact that our employee base seems to want to be like Dave Sterling, who has 9 kids, or my wife and I, who have 8, because the childbirth rate at doTERRA is 6 times the national average, okay? If our employees quit having so many babies, we'd likely have the services portion be a third or a fourth the national average. But be assured, we love children, and we aren't adopting China's one-child policy at doTERRA, right? It was suggested by one of my colleagues that shall remain nameless, but we refer to as doctor, okay? That we have a maturation-type class for employees explaining to them how it's happening that they keep having children, right? Anyway, let's look at one more metric that's even more telling. If you look at the national average for spending on pharmacy, prescription drugs, it's $2,430 per employee. Okay, you know what's coming. Any guesses on what this is for doTERRA? Yes. Here it is. $618. It's only 1/4 the spend. That's right. doTERRA's essential oil loving and using employee base uses 1/4 the prescription drugs as compared to the national average. I could go on and on. If you looked at chronic disease spending, things like obesity, high blood pressure, depression, asthma, diabetes, in those areas, our spend at doTERRA is also well below half the national average. Look at that savings. Clearly, we want a more healthy America, but we firmly believe we can get there while reducing our healthcare costs. We're talking about overall healthcare savings of nearly $7,000 per person, per family, per year. That's $575 per month, okay, for doTERRA employees versus the national average. That's the savings. With that level of savings available, isn't there room for $100 or $150 a month to buy essential oils and related wellness products? Doesn't the world need to know about this data, right? How are we going to get this information out? Maybe you could all take pictures and start sharing this data, this information, right? Our healthcare initiative can be summarized quite easily. doTERRA essential oils need to be part of the healthcare solution in this country to improve patient outcomes and to lower healthcare costs. And we have data, and we're going to collect more data to prove that to the world. Our vision is clear. We're going to lower healthcare costs and improve patient outcomes by integrating essential oils into the healthcare system. We have 4 primary goals that we've established. First, like with our medical clinic at our campus headquarters, we're going to build patient-centric clinical healthcare models that utilize essential oils. Yes. Second, we're going to publish research within the medical community on specific oils and how they help. And we're going further, we're going to publish to the world proof of the efficacy and the cost savings of using essential oils in healthcare. Third, we are 100% focused on empowering wellness advocates with more opportunities to expand their business as consumers will continue to buy essential oils through you. And finally, we believe all this is going to be key to doubling our U.S. customer base over the next 3 years. And as we expand this globally, which we're fully planning to do, we'll eventually reach the doTERRA vision of essential oils in every home. Yes. Over the summer, we conducted a statistically significant research study of more than 4,000 wellness advocates in various cities throughout the United States. We found that only 15% of doctors today offer integrative solutions, which may include essential oils. 75% of our wellness advocates aren't regularly visiting doctors because they consider themselves healthy, which reminds us of our employee data, right? You guys are all way more healthy than the general population. Let's show the world that's the case. The study further showed that 85% of you want a doctor that knows about essential oils, and 86% of you would join a membership fee-based clinic, cost of about $100 or so a month, that would provide you with integrated medicine, including essential oils. So, based on all this data and information, we've developed a 4-tiered approach to expanding healthcare services where essential oils are part of the healthcare solution. First, we have the doTERRA Clinic that will be on our campus. The actual building of this clinic won't be done until actually early 2019, but we plan to start a clinic in a temporary location early next year. This will be owned and operated 100% by doTERRA. We'll serve our employees, wellness advocates in the area, and even the general public in time, assuming we have room, right? This will be a beautiful, state-of-the-art medical clinic focused on patient care. Second, we have a plan to work with a selected partner to build clinics that will eventually spread across the country, providing support for you and your customers, which will also help us gather relevant data for both the medical community and for the general public about essential oils and healthcare. Third, we know that in time, most every medical clinic in the country will want to provide essential oils to their patients, and we have a plan for that. Finally, we firmly believe that as we get the first couple of clinics up and running, we'll be able to provide a telehealth model that people can reach across the country, even if there isn't a nearby clinic. As we develop these clinics, it's important to understand a few things. First, the clinics and doctors in doTERRA's clinics and our partner clinics will not be wellness advocates and will not sell to their patients, okay? Rather, they'll purchase small sample size of the oils they recommend and then will refer their patients to you to get their long-term supply of essential oils. Yeah. Also, we fully plan to ensure that all essential oils, even the samples sold in the clinics, are fully commissioned to wellness advocates, okay? And these clinics are not sales points, but places where professional support can be obtained, where we can gather data about the effectiveness of essential oils and tell the world. Wellness advocates will benefit from getting better medical support, have lower healthcare costs, and will benefit from the research that we publish to the world as this becomes more and more convinced, the world becomes more and more convinced about the power of essential oils. We've selected a partner that we have confidence in and that we trust to build our partner clinics. Their name's Omnicura. They have a vision of changing healthcare in America through holistic medicine and making it personable and accessible and affordable. This is a team that includes 2 medical doctors, other professionals, most of whom have spent their lives in healthcare, including 2 who have had distinguished careers at GE Healthcare. This team knows that healthcare is broken, and they're very motivated to change the system. We have representatives of Omnicura with us here today, so connect with them if you can to learn more about how doTERRA is going to partner with them to change the world of healthcare. And you can go to their site at omnicura.com, their website. So the only remaining question we have right now is, where do we put the clinics? All right? Where? Oh, whoever mentions it first, that's where we go. No, I'm just kidding. We've announced the clinics of our global headquarters. That's really the first clinic. Next year, we want to start adding additional clinics in other areas of the country. We'll likely have 2 up and running by the first half of the year and then add several more each quarter for years to come. We've decided that we need your input on where to put the clinics. We want your feedback, okay? We'll put them where you want them and where you'll support them. Eventually, we plan to have clinics across the country, but we need help in prioritizing them. Can you help us with that? Great. We have developed a way for you to get additional information about our healthcare initiative, to register your interest in having a clinic come to your city, even to your suburb, right? And to stay current in what we are doing. We developed this beautiful website that can be accessed right off the doTERRA website or by going to healthcare.doterra.com right now, okay? It's live, and as you can see, it has a blue pre-register button right there on the left-hand bottom side. Those of you who are interested in having a clinic in your city or your suburb, please go to that pre-register now button and log in your interest. We encourage you to share this link with your customers and friends who couldn't be with us today so they can also log in their interest. There's no cost to pre-register. In the next few months, we anticipate selecting the first few cities where we'll expand, and then we'll be back in touch with those that have pre-registered so they can learn more details, pay small deposits, and get officially registered. For now, we're wanting you to help us prioritize where the first clinics will be located. You can log in now, and just based on experience, if all 30,000 of you log in and the system crashes like on a BOGO day, you're going to have to try again, okay? But you can log in. We want your voice to be heard. So what do you think? Is doTERRA ready to revolutionize the world of healthcare? You know, this is not something we could have done 6 years ago or even 2 years ago. The time is right. Let's work together to change healthcare in America. Let's do it, right? All right. So now it's my pleasure to introduce you to Dr. Brannick Riggs, who recently joined full-time with doTERRA to be our Vice President of Healthcare Initiatives and Chief Medical Director for our clinics, working closely and reporting directly to Dr. David Hill. Most of you know Dr. Riggs, as he has been a long-standing member of our advisory board. He's a graduate of the University of Arizona College of Medicine, is a member of the American Academy of Family Physicians, and has been very successfully practicing medicine for 13 years. He's trained in complementary and alternative medicine and loves essential oils. He even gave me a tip the other day about the antimicrobial benefits of cilantro as he looked at a wound I obtained picking up limbs for a lady in my neighborhood. Please welcome to the stage a dear friend and now an official full-time business colleague, Dr. Brannick Riggs. Thank you.
Hello, Doterra. What an exciting day. It's about time, right? So, what an honor it is to join this incredible team of executives. I am continually impressed by the energy and integrity of this woman and group of men, and I'm grateful for the opportunity to work with them. This is my wife, and she is by far the woman behind the man. I am grateful for her support during my career and now on to working with this incredible company of Doterra. This is the rest of the crew. We have 5 children. Notice there's only 4 pictured there, and I'll tell you why in just a moment. But we love to travel as a family. Between the 7 of us, we've been to 4 continents over the last 8 years. And the story I'm about to tell you has a lot to do with traveling. It actually has to do with the one child that's not pictured in our last family picture, as he recently returned home from serving a volunteer mission for our church, and so was absent during the last family pictures. When I was a resident, we went to Germany for a 6-week rotation. This was an international rotation to learn how it is to practice family medicine across in Europe. And I took my family with me. Parker, at the time, was about 8 years old, and our 2 boys had bikes to ride. The other picture shown there is the town that we stayed in. It's called Idar Oberstein, Germany. Where are our German friends today? Good to see you. Guten Tag. And so the boys were told, as we lived up on the hill there, that they could ride across the street in front of the house that we were staying, but to never ride down the street that went straight down the hill to a busy road. So it took about 30 minutes before Parker was flying down the hill. He rode his bike into a parked car at the bottom of the hill, and not just any car, but he chose a BMW to hit. He went over the car, closely followed by his bike, landing on the pavement, and the bike landed on his head, the bike axle going through his skull. We rushed to the hospital in an ambulance. We had an emergency room visit, had an x-ray in the emergency room, later followed by a CT scan of his head, admissions to the pediatric unit, and 10 days of inpatient IV antibiotics, because this is now an open skull fracture. So I'm thinking, as a doctor, knowing what healthcare costs in the US, okay, so I'm gonna have to put a second mortgage on my house, or I'm gonna lose my home because I've gotta pay for this all out of pocket. Our insurance did not cover out of the country hospitalization. So on the final day, when Parker was discharged, I went to the financial office and said, so what do I owe for this, and how am I going to figure out how to make payments? They told me, well, that'll be $1,800. And I said, no, I don't. I understand the payment method, I get that, but I need to know everything up front so I can figure out how to pay for this. And they said, no, that'll be $1,800. And I said, that is incredible. You can't have an emergency room visit in the US for $1,800. This included everything that I just told you. And so the question was, why? Why? My curiosity was piqued at that point, and so I've studied this throughout my career. Today I'm going to talk a little bit about the healthcare initiative and why it is essential. So let's get first a lay of the land as to where we are in delivering healthcare in the United States today. How are we doing compared to the rest of the world? Some of this data you've seen, but some of it may be new to you. The data from 2015 says that, and again, this has gone up since that time, this is a percent of the gross domestic product for healthcare. Russia spent 5.6% of their GDP on healthcare. Italy, 9%. The UK, 9.9%, followed closely by Canada at 10.3%. Japan, 10.9%. France and Germany at 11.1%. and 11.2% respectively. and the US spent 16.9% of our gross domestic product on healthcare. That's almost 50% greater than Germany and France, and 3 times greater than Russia. Now, we'll talk about Russia in just a little bit, why they may be spending a little bit too little on healthcare. But then we look at healthcare dollars per capita. Italy, they spend about $3,300 per person. The United Kingdom, $4,000 per person. Japan, about the same. France, a little bit more at about $4,500, and Canada, about that. Germany, our next closest neighbor in spending per person on healthcare, spends $5,200 on healthcare per person in their country. In the US, we're at $9,541 per person. That's more than twice as much as Canada, France, Japan, and the UK. Almost 3 times as much as Italy, and if you look at Russia, we're 7 times as much as Russia. So then the question comes, I'm fine paying those dollars provided that we're getting better outcomes, that we have a better healthcare system in our country. So are we getting value in what we're paying for? We know we're spending more in both percentage of GDP as well as per capita spending, so what have we bought with those dollars? Infant mortality rates, now this is again 2015 data per 1,000 live births. We look at Japan at 2.3, Germany 3.2, France 3.5, the UK at 3.9, and then we sit at 5.8. We're the second highest in infant mortality rates in the developed countries of the world. Again, remember I mentioned that Russia may not be spending quite enough on healthcare. They have an infant mortality rate of 7.4. Corey used this data just a few minutes ago of life expectancy at birth. This was 2015 data. Again, the US, we're at 78.9 years. Germany, 81.2, the UK, 81.4, and on and on. Italy, 83.2. But since 2010, Italy, the UK, Japan, and France took a close look at this data and said, we can change this. And so they've made significant changes and increased their life expectancy by about a year. Russia was very poor in this life expectancy chart, as you might imagine. And so since 2010, they took a close look at this and have increased their life expectancy by 1.9 years, a significant move of the dial. But the US, since 2010, has only increased our life expectancy by 0.3 years. And as Corey mentioned earlier, 2016 tells us that for someone born in 2015, life expectancy actually dropped for the first time since the early 1990s from 78.9 years to 78.8 years. This is significant. So if we take a look at our overweight or obese population, this isn't just adults. We're talking about people over the age of 15. Japan and Korea are at about 24.7% and 31%. The UK is at 61.7%, and Australia at 64%. In the US, we have 70.1% of our population that is either overweight or obese. Data tells us that children born in 2015 have a 1 in 3 chance of becoming diabetic in their lifetime. That means we are about to have a huge epidemic of diabetes in this country. So why are we spending so much money and getting so little in return? Why are we comfortable with this model? Why has this become the status quo in our country? There's 2 problems I want to mention to you. One is called the 30-30 problem. In the United States, we spend 30% more on health care than similar countries and get 30% less in return as far as services are concerned. There's also the 10-2 problem, which is health benefit costs in the US are rising by 10% a year over the last 10 years, while wages are increasing only by 2% a year. As you can see, this becomes unsustainable at some point. A study from the World Health Organization in 2000 ranked all health systems in the world. Every country in the world was ranked based on 5 performance indicators. As you can see from the previous data, France came in number 1. Do we have any of our French people here today? Okay, we've got some from over here. Wonderful. You guys live in a great country for health care. We can learn a few things from you. The second country was Italy. Oman was ranked as number 8. Norway, number 11. Saudi Arabia, number 26. And UAE followed closely at 27. Chile was number 33, Costa Rica number 36, and we ranked number 37 in the world in healthcare, despite outspending everyone else. So healthcare needs to change. It must change. And Doterra is uniquely positioned to change how we deliver healthcare in this country. For two reasons, really. Doterra is customer-centered. Imagine a physician visit that is completely focused on the patient and their agenda and not the doctor's agenda. Does that sound good? The other reason that Doterra as a company is uniquely set up to work in this industry is that most people involved with Doterra are already engaged in their health. Everyone that I have met, both in my office and working with all of you, that are working with Doterra feel a personal responsibility for their own health, and this is rare. To get patients to engage in taking care of themselves is a rare commodity in healthcare. So why am I here? What brings Dr. Riggs to this point to be working with Doterra in the avenue that I've been asked to work with? I have 9 years of post-high school education. I trained, as Corey mentioned, at the University of Arizona College of Medicine. I trained with a gentleman, all right, my Tucsonans out there. I worked with Dr. Andrew Weil while there and got extensive training in alternative medicine. I had 3 years of residency at McCady Hospital, pictured here in Ogden, Utah. Brought me to this beautiful state. I'll tell you, I originally intended to go back down to Arizona when I was done with residency, but Utah has these cool things called seasons, which I became very enamored with when I got here. So I love the changes that happen up here. We don't get a lot of change down in Tucson. I've had success with my clinic that I founded many years ago and love seeing patients. That is a passion of mine, and I'll tell you a little bit more about that in just a moment. But I find great enjoyment in healthcare, but realize there has to be a change. Any relationship is about love. Whether we're talking about the husband-wife relationship, a parent-child relationship, a friendship, or the doctor-patient relationship, the foundation is built upon love. Doctors love their patients, particularly those of us in primary care. I have grown to know and love mine. I share these pictures with you and tell you a bit of their story with their permission, so we're not violating any HIPAA laws here. This is my friend Troy in the picture. Troy, several years ago, was living away from home. He was addicted to alcohol and addicted to many, many street substances. He was drunk and high one night and walked out into a street and was hit by a car. He had several broken bones and a traumatic brain injury. When he was admitted to my nursing home after his hospital stay, he couldn't walk and he couldn't speak. And so we had several of our specialists working with him, and after a few weeks, he could begin to speak. His first words, and this went on for weeks, were, "You look good." And he would say that every time he saw anyone. And so, of course, I like to spend a lot of time with Troy. It didn't matter whether I showed up at 9 o'clock at night in a t-shirt and jeans or whether I was in a suit. It was always, "You look good." And I would tell him the same thing back. How do you not love spending time with that guy? His speech eventually returned, but now he talks with quite broken language. We spent many evenings talking about how his life has to change. Where he was, he can't return to. And he made some very conscious decisions to change his life. He now lives at home with his mother, attends church every week, and he is a joy to be around. He reminds me of what it means to change and choose something different when you find your life is not where you expect it to be. I have been honored to be Troy's friend. This picture is with Lucy and Rachel. This is a grandmother and granddaughter. I'll tell you about Rachel first. She's an amazing woman. When I met her many years ago, she was a very successful businesswoman. Never wanted to have children. The motherhood was not in her cards. She was sure. And she had the world by the tail. She is now the mom of 2 energetic boys. I just saw on Facebook that it was their first day of school today. And she posted pictures of them doting on how cute they were. She's married to a man who loves her. She definitely has her opinions about how she would like to be treated by me, and we have a mutual respect for each other. She reminds me to listen to people and treat them according to what they need and not what I need to give them. Lucy is a 96-year-old grandma. Until the last few years, she's been going to Hawaii every year with a friend and spends about 2 to 3 weeks there. She always has a smile on her face and is always laughing. But you would not know this to look at her, but she has been through some very difficult things in her life. She's buried a loving husband several years ago and has been a widow for many years. She continues to live by herself in her home with the kids and grandkids coming by often to check on her. And she's buried a son who unfortunately drank himself to death with alcohol. She's slowing down a bit now and is no longer the spry 90-year-old that I knew just a few years ago. Lucy, in fact, takes one medication at 96 years old. We've been able to get her through her life with only one medication. She still decorates the tree. It's her doing. She's amazing. She still decorates the tree in her front yard every Easter with Easter eggs. She hangs them up by strings and puts them on her tree and still smiles and shares her infectious laughter with everyone she meets. She reminds me that despite the challenges we go through, we always have a choice in how we respond to those challenges. And lastly, I want to tell you about this patient that I don't have a picture of here. Her name is Alice. Alice, by coincidence, ended up in Utah. She was moving from Minnesota to California. She's an elderly lady, and she had a stroke while passing through Utah. She got stuck here. She went through rehab at the nursing home where I was the medical director, and then asked me to be her primary care physician upon her discharge. She, admittedly by her, is a very grouchy old lady. She raised 3 children on her own, and sadly, those children no longer speak to her. She has contact with one granddaughter who's very busy with her life and rarely visits. And so she came to see me in my office every month to have her blood checked for the blood thinner that she's on due to her stroke. I told her one day, about a year ago, you know, Alice, you don't need to come see me anymore. You can just have the nurses check your blood. You don't need an appointment, and you don't need to pay a copay to come see me. But she insisted. She said, this is the only time I get out of the house every month, and she enjoys coming to see me. So I immediately contacted my front desk and said, listen, anytime Alice makes an appointment, please make 30 minutes available to her because she needs time to talk. So one day as she was leaving my clinic, I asked this bristly woman if I could give her a hug. She responded that that would be fine. As I put my arms around her, she began to cry. And I asked her, kind of confused, what's wrong? She said, this is the first time that anyone has touched me in years. Now, of course, we had been touching her to draw blood and check vitals and do exams, but I think that what she meant to say was this is the first emotional touch she had had in a very long time. I made sure to hug her every time she came in from then on. My staff began to hug her when she came in. She taught me how important it is to see past the hard exterior and really connect with the people that we care for. These are the stories that I have been a witness to in a very intimate way. I am privileged as a physician to have a front row seat into many lives. And I love that doTERRA Healthcare allows the time for physicians to know and love their patients. I have friends and colleagues that are seeing 45 patients a day, 5 days a week. Now that's about 225 patients a week and about 900 patients a month. This typically means that as a patient, you get to spend about 3 to 7 minutes with a doctor when you go see him. I feel that it is impossible to build the appropriate relationship and correctly diagnose consistently in that amount of time. This model of healthcare is all about the physician being the commodity there. It's about how valuable the doctor is and about how valuable the doctor's time is and how many patients that he can fit in a day. For some doctors and for some patients, maybe this works. But the doTERRA model of healthcare is about relationships. It's about spending enough time with your doctor to where he or she knows all of the intricacies that contribute to your health. It's about knowing your home situation, your work-life stressors, your diet, your relationships, your sorrows, and your joys. The Doterra Healthcare Initiative is about you. The Doterra Healthcare is about timing as well. As you know, for years we've been partnering with organizations such as Johns Hopkins, the University of Utah, Duke University, and many more. These partnerships are furthering the research into essential oils, and it's time now to incorporate that research into a clinical model. Now, I want to take a little break from talking about healthcare for a second to review a story with you. We all know the story of David and Goliath. David is the little guy, Goliath is the big guy, and this is just a classic story for us. This is the story from the Bible where the Philistines sent out a champion named Goliath of Gath, who stood 6 cubits and a span. Now, to give you an idea, that means he was a little taller than I am, by about 4 feet. David is a shepherd boy. He shows up to deliver some food to his brothers serving in the army. Now, he volunteers that he will go and fight this giant. So the stage is set for an epic battle. One armed with a heavy armor, a spear, sword, and shield. And the other armed with faith and some rocks. And we know the rest of the story. David hits Goliath with a stone between the eyes, cuts off his head, and Saul's army defeats the Philistines. But let's take a little closer look at this story from a medical perspective. Goliath's behavior is actually quite puzzling. He's supposed to be a great warrior, but he's not acting like one. Notice the person just to the right, okay, Goliath's right. Goliath comes down to the valley floor every day for 40 days, accompanied by an attendant walking before him carrying a shield. Infantry always carried their own shields, especially when calling for hand-to-hand combat, as he was. Goliath also several times tells David, "Come to me." Now, why can't a big guy like Goliath go to David? Goliath, being infantry, which means he fights hand-to-hand combat with a sword and shield, and David is what they call a slinger. They threw things from a distance at the opposing army. And they threw things so fast that current research tells us that the rock coming towards you was equivalent to the speed of a bullet leaving a .45 handgun. Goliath should have been very afraid of a slinger coming down the hill towards him, but he doesn't do anything but mock the boy who's treating him like a dog, coming at him with staves. Now remember in the story that David had a staff, a sling, and 5 smooth stones, but yet Goliath says the word staves, plural. Goliath may have had some weaknesses. He obviously had a vision problem where he couldn't see very well. He needed a servant to guide him down to the valley floor every day. He saw David carrying at least 2 staves rather than 1 staff that he was actually carrying, and he kept telling David again, "Come to me." This would be so that maybe he could see him better. And again, any infantry seeing a slinger running towards him should have run, knowing what the outcome was obviously going to be. Goliath possibly had a disease called acromegaly. This is caused by a benign tumor of the pituitary gland releasing too much growth hormone. This explains Goliath's enormous size of 9 feet, 9 inches, and this would also help us understand the reason he had a servant walk him to the valley floor, the double vision, and not recognize that his demise was coming down the hill towards him. The tumor is right behind the bridge of the nose. Ironic that that's where the stone hit him, and presses on the optic nerve, causing severely restricted sight and double vision. What the Israelite army saw from high on the ridge was an intimidating giant. In reality, the very thing that gave him his giant size was also the source of his greatest weakness. Healthcare is our giant, but we will use the exact thing that makes it a giant to defeat it. We will show you that patients should be the center of care and that healthcare can be affordable. Who else is going to take on healthcare? Pharmaceutical companies are in fact lobbying to keep everything status quo. They're making billions of dollars. Insurance companies don't want healthcare for profit to change. I've told many patients that insurance companies have at their highest priority making a profit for investors. That's their job, which is often at odds with what is best for the patient. Who else will take on healthcare other than a company that has at its core empowering people to take on personal responsibility for their health? Who else will take on healthcare other than a company who has at its core sharing knowledge with each other and assisting where we can anywhere in the world? Who else is going to take on healthcare? The reason doTERRA is getting into healthcare are threefold. Number one, to better understand essential oils and how they work. We'll be able to do good clinical trials, human trials, and show efficacy and outcomes. Number two, it's time to integrate what all of you already know and what has been done for centuries and integrate that into the good that modern medicine has to offer. This is not alternative medicine, this is integrative medicine. doTERRA has from its founding believed in partnering with modern medicine and has never positioned itself to argue, replace, or take away from modern medicine. We will take essential oils and pair them with what we know works in a modern medical practice. We will be able to reduce or stop taking certain medications with this integration. We are partnering, number three, we are partnering healthcare with you and the good that you are already doing. We hope to partner with all of you amazing wellness advocates out there and help your friends and neighbors as you are already doing. So why is doTERRA's healthcare initiative essential? Because you need more affordable care. Because you deserve better care. And because you are going to help change the way healthcare is delivered in America and potentially around the world. Thank you.
Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome back to the stage, Russell Butters.
This is my fight song. Take back my life song. Prove I'm alright song.
Good afternoon, everybody. So far today, we've had some amazing messages, right? Think about where we started this morning with Dave Sterling, the message that we heard from Emily, the new products, healthcare. This has been a truly remarkable day, and it's going to get better. I'll tell you, the last few minutes I was backstage talking with our keynote speaker, Dan Nevins, and I had a couple tears come to my eye. Hearing his story is amazing, and I don't think anybody in this crowd today has even begun to experience what he's going to share with us. So it is my pleasure to give a little background about Dan and then welcome him to the stage. So Dan Nevins' story is one of great personal struggle, but even greater resilience and triumph. Dan has been sharing his story and inspiring audiences around the globe for over a decade. And after this, he's going to China. But he is reminding people to live their lives as best as possible from a moment-to-moment phenomena. And after being severely injured in a combat operation in Iraq, Dan found himself in a different kind of fight. Not only a fight for his life, but for his soul. And today, Dan continues to serve humanity and his fellow wounded warriors through his passion as a yoga instructor, leading workshops and trainings and master classes around the world. And here's something very cool I learned about Dan. He walked last night in our gala with one of our new diamonds. And when he learned about doTERRA, he started with a diamond kit. How cool is that? Yes. So Dan has had the opportunity to speak to hundreds, thousands of people and audiences. And I want him to know how much we at doTERRA appreciate his service to this great country and the sacrifice that he has given. So doTERRA, on your feet, let's give Dan Nevins the biggest welcome that he has ever heard. Ladies and gentlemen, Dan Nevins.
right, so do you remember the most ridiculous thing you've ever said? What? Oh, you have an oil for that. Yeah, there's that. Well, for me, no. For me, it was the first time I said, hi, my name is Dan Nevins, and I'm a yoga teacher. I mean, literally, it was like complete antithesis of what I thought my whole life was going to be. I had spent a career in the military. I'm retired from the United States Army. Never in a world. Yeah, I never thought I'd teach yoga. Yeah, it wasn't for me. But I'll tell you this, it's the most important work I've ever done. You know, and joining the Army for me wasn't a natural thing either. My dad served in Vietnam, so he was kind of against the military. It was never spoken in our household. But for me, it took, who remembers the first Gulf War, 1991? Yeah, so I was at home in Baltimore. I grew up in the ghetto in Baltimore, like not a great place to live. Oh yeah, Baltimore, woo! I was in the bad part, they're from the good part. Yeah, so I grew up without a lot of money, and my mom left when I was 13. My dad did the best he could to raise my brother and I, and he was a truck driver, so he was gone all the time. So family to me wasn't something that gave me the warm and fuzzies. You know, I grew up watching reruns of Leave It to Beaver and The Cosby Show. Turns out Bill Cosby wasn't like the best role model, but Cliff Huxtable, the physician, was the man, right? Yeah, those shows, I didn't relate to those. But I'll never forget watching a local news coverage, and you guys have all seen this before. It was local coverage of a military unit being deployed. And the first part of it was people in uniform saying goodbye to their families. And you've all seen this. There's tears, and there's the hugging, and they're saying goodbye. And it didn't hit me. But then I saw something that inspired me. I saw those people all wearing the uniform of our country with the American flag on their shoulder leave their families and come together. And then they were embracing. And there were tears and laughter. And I said to myself, now that is a family I can be a part of. So I raced down the recruiting station and raised my right hand, and I joined the United States Army, thinking I was just gonna go fight, because I was bullied growing up too, because I was a little kid in a rough neighborhood. So if you remember the history, it was this mean big country of Iraq picking on this little country called Kuwait. At least that's the way it was presented to us. And I was like, well, I'm gonna go kick some butt on behalf of America for bullies. And then turns out my recruiter said, well, no, you're in the delayed entry program. And I said, well, what's the delay? You have to graduate high school. And I was like, oh, no. You see, I was a smart kid, but I was not a good student. I didn't have parents making me do homework or get up and go to school, so I kind of floated through. I did my junior year twice, and I'm starting my senior year. So I go to my guidance counselor with this news, like, hey, I got to join the Army. I got to see what I got to do to graduate. And she said, oh, honey, you're not going to graduate this year. And I said, well, what do you mean? She's like, well, you won't have enough credits. Even if you pass everything, you won't graduate. But I had, for the first time in my whole life, a goal. Like, I needed to graduate because I had to do this. So she said, okay, well, you can go to 3 nights a week of night school and Saturday morning school, and you'll graduate. So that's what I did. Yeah, and if you remember your history too, the Gulf War started in February of 1991, and it was over in March of 1991. So I'm still in school this time, and I'm like, whoa, do I still have to go? Yeah, the answer is yes, I still had to go, which was great, and I have no regrets of my time in uniform, my 8 years active duty, my first duty station being Germany, where I got to be the poor kid from Baltimore that made it. You know, I was traveling the world, seeing things I'd never thought I'd see, the things that I barely paid attention to in history books. I was walking around and getting to experience and touch and live. And then I re-enlisted to go to Fort Bragg, North Carolina. Best place in the world to be a soldier. Worst place in the world to be a single dude. Yeah, I got to shoot every weapon system known to man. I got to jump out of airplanes, blow things up. But dating, whoa. 18 dudes to every female around Fort Bragg in that area. Any single ladies here? Single? That's right, just go to Fort Bragg. You have your pick. Literally anyone you want, and they all look great too. They're like, if you looked up soldier in the dictionary, there's the guy from Fort Bragg, like his helmet cocked back and his weapon system proud, like no body fat, just looks great. Like you can just literally have your pick. Upstairs, maybe not so much, but you can train that out, right, ladies? You can just train that away. Yeah, I loved my time at Fort Bragg, but I got out because I wanted more. I wanted to make more money. It's the real thing. So I went to college in California, got a degree in business. I was a stockbroker a while, then eventually into pharmaceutical sales. But I couldn't give up the uniform cold turkey. So what I did is I simultaneously re-enlisted in the California Army National Guard. But I'll tell you this, the Guard is much different today, but back in 2000, the California Army National Guard was nothing like Fort Bragg. Like instead of this guy, you got the guy that couldn't button his uniform. Hair all out of regulations because, yeah, it seemed like they just didn't care. It turns out they just didn't have money in their budget to shoot their weapons or to do a physical fitness test. Like it just didn't happen. And, you know, I still got to have that sense of pride one weekend a month when I would put my uniform on and it fit, and then go show up and be a part of something bigger than myself. Even though the landscape looked a lot different than Fort Bragg that I just left. I'll never forget I was a senior in college. My first real job was as a stockbroker, and I was interning at a brokerage. And I remember we walked into the office and turned on the TV at 6 a.m. on September 11th, 2001. Just in time to see the second plane hit the tower. And I remember I was riveted watching the news coverage, and I could just feel my boss staring at me from the side. And I'm just watching, I'm hearing the name Osama bin Laden for the first time. I'm learning about like all these plots that people had known about, but like we weren't aware of. I'm just riveted, glued to the television. And then I just felt these eyes burning into me, and I looked over, and my boss was white as a ghost, and he said, "You're in the Army. Are you going to have to go to war?" And then I thought for a minute. And then I just looked at him, and I laughed, and I said, "No, not with these people. I'm in the National Guard, bro. It's just a different thing. I know you don't get it, but it's just not like that. Like these people, like we're not going to fight anything." And I was right for 2 years. I left that job and went into pharmaceutical sales. I was making a boatload of money. I built a house in Sonoma County, California, where my backyard was a Cabernet vineyard as far as you could see. I was literally living the American dream. Like the poor kid from Baltimore, all grown up, paid his way through school, like I'm pinning all these badges of courage to my body, like, yeah, like I made it, like I did this. And then we got the orders that we were going to be going to Iraq for 6 months. And I couldn't believe it. I was literally dumbfounded. I'm like, how can this be happening? I'll never forget the day that I had to come home and tell my wife that we're going to get deployed. And then what she said when she looked at me and said, "I thought that you didn't have to do that. I thought the National Guard was different. If I would have known this was possible, I never would have married you." Her dad was career military. and an alcoholic. So she was projecting. I get that now. And then things weren't great between us leading up to the deployment. And then I remember standing in the National Guard Armory about to be deployed. There's buses waiting outside. All the families are on the outside of the walls. I'm standing in formation with all the other folks that were being deployed, which was kind of a rare sight because I didn't know any of these people. It took our whole battalion from all over California, about 700 people, to make one deployable company of just around 100 people. Basically, 1 in 7 in my unit in the California Army National Guard were fit to fight or fit to be deployed. And of those that made it, I think they were fudging the paperwork a little bit. So I'm standing here with people that I don't know, about to be deployed in harm's way, and they give us our orders. We're in formation, standing there next to each other, and orders are basically just a piece of paper that's like identity theft on a white sheet. It has your social security number, your address, like everything about you. And I remember reading it said, Staff Sergeant Nevins, you're ordered in support of Operation Iraqi Freedom 2 for a period of no less than 545 days. And I wasn't a math major, but 545 days is a lot more than 6 months. 18 months. I remember walking over to my wife, and I handed her the orders, and she just looked at me like I was crazy, not knowing what I handed her. And then I just pointed at that line. And I remember watching as she read it, she just crumpled that page in her hands and hit her knees. And I picked up my gear and I left. I got on the bus, headed to who knows what. And that's what I was thinking. I was like, okay, we're going to be deployed, we're going to go to Iraq, but what are these people? What are we going to do? It can't be anything important. Not us, not these people. But it turns out when we got into theater, we were assigned to a new task force called Task Force Tacoma, which was attached to 1st Infantry Division, and it was going to be our job to kick in the doors and chase down the bad guys, acting on operational intelligence throughout the theater. And I was blown away. How could this happen? Like, whoever's in charge is getting it all wrong. Like, this doesn't add up. Why us? I remember when we got the news, everyone was racing to their phones to call family. I didn't. I went straight to the internet cafe. This is before internet was like everywhere. And I'd open up the computer, and I'm finding all my old people from Fort Bragg, asking them if they were deployed, if they can get me the heck out of here so I can go fight with them instead. And I wasn't proud of that. But I was scared for my life. No replied emails. Our operational tempo started pretty gradually, and then it got really, really intense, and we started losing people. Good people. And there's something amazing about goals. That when the consequence of your goal is the consequence of not meeting your goal is that your best friends die, you'd surprise yourself at the amount of transformation that's possible from knowing something like that. And I watched this group of these people do all the work necessary to transform into one of the most elite, efficient, ass-kicking group of United States military men on the planet that I'd ever had the privilege of serving with. Like, we got to be very good at our job. And our missions were getting more and more intense and more significant. And then I'll never forget, the Battle of Fallujah started on November 7th of 2004. Now, I was not in the Battle of Fallujah. But the reason I remember it is because I had a great medic. His name was Sergeant Goutreau. We called him Sergeant G. And he's the best medic around. And he smoked a lot of cigarettes, which wasn't good, and he talked really loud when he wasn't supposed to. But Sergeant G could shoot, move, communicate, keep us patched up, and in the fight. Like, he was the best at his job. So it was no surprise when the Marine Corps stole away our Army medic to go help in the fight in Fallujah. And then we got this new guy, a guy named Dan Smee. And Dan Smee was this kid from Southern California, and he had this blonde hair that hung in his face like this, which is like not okay if you're in the Army. And his hair was like this, and he was like, hey man, I'm so excited to be part of your team, bro. And I was like, are you stoned right now? Like, what's happening? Turns out he was a pretty good guy. We went on a couple missions together, and then 2 days later on November 9th, we got intelligence that some of the insurgency was leaving Fallujah to come attack our area of operations in Balad, a place called LSA Anaconda. So like the most professional army in the world, we drew up a battle plan. We practiced, we prepared. We rehearsed every possible contingency. Like, we knew what we were going to do. We were going to go meet the enemy where they were. We weren't going to let them come and do the things that they wanted to do. We were taking control of the fight, and we had it. It was handled, and I was going to be the non-commissioned officer in charge of this operation. It was supposed to be my boss, my platoon sergeant, a guy named Mike Adelini. But Mike had, a month before, we discovered he'd been fighting through a hernia for the past month. And we said, Mike, you got to get that fixed. And he had got his surgery scheduled. And then the intelligence came, so he wasn't going to be able to be part of it. And if Mike was in this room right now, he wouldn't be the smartest guy in the room. He wouldn't be the most talkative guy in the room. He wouldn't be the most social guy in the room. But if Mike Adelini were in this room right now, he'd be the hardest working human being in this room. And I don't even know you all, and I can say that with confidence. He's the hardest working human being I've ever met. So I remember going to sleep that night, and the next morning we had a 4 o'clock in the morning start time, and I'm going through all my people, my team. And like, I don't know if it's cooler. I'm a high fiver. Like, it's what I do. I don't do this stuff and snaps and all that. I just high five. So if you were on my team, you knew that when I'm doing my pre-combat inspection with you, if I high five you, you're good to go to get in the truck. And one by one, by each member of my team, I'm high fiving them. They're getting in their truck. High five, I get in the truck, and then I get to my lead vehicle, and I go to tap my driver, this guy named Smitty. And I tap Smitty, and it turns around, and it's not Smitty, it's Mike, my boss. And I said, Mike, what are you doing here? And he pulled me to the side. You know how people do when they're about to tell you something they weren't supposed to do? And he said, hey, so I got up early this morning, and I found Smitty, and I told him that he was sick, and that if he didn't go along with me telling him he was sick, I was going to make him sick. So Smitty said, I'm sick, Sergeant, I can't go on the mission. So I had to volunteer. So here I am. I'm going to drive you guys out, drop you off. I'll still make my flight. So I high-fived Mike, and I got in the truck. We left the main gates of LSA Anaconda at exactly 0400 hours. With military precision, right on time. These people. I remember we took a right on a well-traveled paved road that we called Route Dover, and an immediate left on a not-so-well-traveled dirt road en route to what was supposed to be our dismount site, maybe 7 kilometers down the road. I remember it was eerily black outside. It was completely dark. Low-hanging cloud cover kept the moon and stars from being visible. And I remember how quiet it was. It was eerily silent. I remember my head was bowed in prayer like it was before every mission as we're bouncing carefully down this pitiful road in silence and darkness. And I remember it was so quiet, the only thing I could hear was the familiar 6.2-liter Cummins diesel engine in my Humvee as we went slowly down this road. And I'm in that prayer, and then boom! The silence was destroyed by the deafening blast that sent my 18,000-pound vehicle about 6 feet in the air in a ball of fire. I remember being in the prayer, and then when that explosion happened, I could feel and hear the truck basically disintegrate around my body, and I might have been knocked out for a few seconds, but I realized when I opened my eyes that I had been ejected from the vehicle, and my legs remained caught in the twisted and burning metal that used to be the floorboard and undercarriage of the truck. My face felt hot. I had a ringing in my ears. I had this sickening knot in my stomach, and my chest was tight. I couldn't really see well. My eyes were blurry. And then I could start to see a little better because my truck was starting to catch fire from the aftermath of the blast. And as the dust began to settle, I looked forward to the driver's compartment. And I noticed immediately that Sergeant First Class Mike Connellini had made the ultimate sacrifice for our country. And that's actually who I wear this bracelet for every day. You've probably seen these before, yeah. You've probably seen these. They're memorial bracelets. You'll see them on a lot of service members' arms and family members' arms, and it's just a memorial of who they are. It has his name, Task Force Tacoma, 10 November 2004, Balad, Iraq. But I don't wear this as a memorial. Well, like, partly I do, but I really wear this for two reasons. Two reminders, actually. The first is a reminder to work hard. Like, not just, just do whatever I think is needed or expected, but actually do the work. Like, do the work, because I get inspired and have all these goals, but actually do the work necessary to make my goals reality. Because a goal without hard work is just a wish. Yeah, you get present to that. And wishes don't do anything for anyone unless it's actualized and realized, and the only way to make that happen is with hard work. So this bracelet reminds me to do the work behind my goals. Because I used to be the guy, like, I have all these goals and things I want to do, and then I'd get pissed when they wouldn't happen. But then realizing that I didn't do the work. I didn't do what was required. This bracelet reminds me and makes sure that that doesn't happen in my life anymore. And this bracelet reminds me to live. Actually live. Not just be alive and go through day to day and my default of stumbling through and being who I think people think I should be, or what's expected of me, but actually live a life of purpose and meaning that makes me sleep well at night. To live a life that not only Mike would be proud of, that I will be proud of, that my children will be proud of. This bracelet reminds me that life every day above ground is so worth living to like the maximum potential. As I'm laying there, like not knowing what's going on, I just saw Mike and I realized that I'm hurt pretty bad, but I'd yet to really know the extent of my injuries. So, like we're trained, I started with my helmet, and it came apart in two pieces in my hand. And that wasn't a good start, but I was conscious, and that's a good thing. And then I realized that, like everything in the government, that helmet was made by the lowest bidder. So, could have just been a defect, I don't know. I continued to check myself, my arms, my torso, and when I reached up for my legs, that's when I felt it. I felt the unmistakable arterial blood spurt with every beat of my heart. And I knew that I was going to die. I started to make my peace with God. I was saying goodbye to my wife and my 10-year-old daughter. I was giving up and losing what seemed like all of my blood in this miserable place on the planet. And you know how they say when you're about to die, your life flashes before your eyes? You've heard that before, yeah? Well, that wasn't my experience. For me, it was more like watching a slideshow of all the things that I wouldn't be able to do. Like one by one, the thoughts were coming up, and it was like I was saying goodbye to them. And then the one I remember was my daughter. All grown up, dressed in white, and walking down the aisle without her dad. And then I sat up and I was like, Dan, I'm alive. I'm alive. I better do something to keep it that way. And I reached my hand into the wound in my thigh, almost up to my wrist, in an attempt to find the artery and stop the bleeding. I thought I was going to be like MacGyver and just pinch off the artery and be like, I got it. Just got to walk this off. That's what I thought was going to happen, but it wasn't like that. I just pressed and I prayed that it would give time for the medic to arrive. And then it's like I blinked my eyes, and there was Dan Smee. Totally lying to me. Sergeant Evans, you're going to be all right. I blinked again, and there was a tourniquet on my leg. I blinked again, and one of my team leaders was putting an IV in my arm. And I blinked again, and my whole team, my family, was there, putting themselves in harm's way to remove my legs from that truck that was still on fire. And then I blinked again, I was on a stretcher, and then in a helicopter, and like a 1-minute flight back to the main gates of LSA Anaconda that I had just left maybe 10 minutes before. And I was whisked off, they put some happy juice in my IV, and I was out for surgery. And then when I woke up, I'm in the recovery area of the tent, and there was this combat nurse's face right in mine. And I'll never know her name, but I'll never forget her face or what she said. She said, Sergeant Evans, you're a very lucky man. We managed to repair your femoral artery. We had to take your left leg below the knee. We managed to save the right one for now, but you'll probably lose that one too. And then right around the time I was about to feel sorry for myself, I looked against the wall of the tent, and there was my whole team just standing there waiting for me to wake up, my family. And then they came over, and we told stories, and we laughed. Like I was in tears from laughter instead of pain for the first time. We talked about Mike. We shed some of the different kind of tears. And I went to sleep. And I woke up the next morning at Landstuhl Regional Medical Center in Germany, where I'd spend the next 7 days with surgery at least once, maybe twice a day, mostly in an attempt to save my right leg, which ultimately didn't work, and now I'm a bilateral amputee. But I remember I didn't have a lot of time with people. I was in and out of my anesthetic coma, and when I'd wake up, I'd usually find myself sitting in a pool of my own blood waiting for a dressing change with what looked like piano wire holding my thigh together. My right leg was up in traction with rod and pins holding it together, and I was like not even close to the worst off in that hospital. Like I said, I wasn't in the Battle of Fallujah, but the Battle of Fallujah was in that hospital. Every ward was full. The hallways were full of combat wounded. Most of them worse off than me. Most of them Marines. Most of them 18 and 19 years old. I had those 7 days to set myself up for a lifetime of disappointment. Like, who was I supposed to be now? Like, I was a competitive runner. Running is what brought my wife and I together. That's what we did. That was our thing. And now, what was life going to be like with her? Like, I didn't even necessarily leave on the best terms. How would she love me anymore? And then my 10-year-old daughter, who I used to play hard with and throw on my shoulders and run around and play hard like dads do with their kids, she looked up to me. She respected me. And I didn't know if that was going to be the case anymore. And then I finally get my ride to Walter Reed Army Medical Center in D.C., one plane ride. I finally got my spot, and they take you off all your pain medicine. It was the most painful, miserable experience I can't even describe to you about that flight and landing and my welcome to Walter Reed surgery. And the next morning, waking up on Ward 57, the severely injured orthopedic ward at Walter Reed, where I did get to meet my nurse, Erica, who was the first human being I actually got to talk to. And in talking with Erica, well, one, like if you knew Erica, you know that she's so pretty. Like you guys, so hot. Well, man, she was like, normal, average, if that's a thing, like average hot, but she had pain medicine that made her like a 12 on the 10 scale, right? I think I proposed to her like 4 times. Oh, please marry me. She's like, you're married. I'm like, I don't care. So good. And I remember she brought in my lunch and she said, hey, there's some guys I think you should meet. And in came 2 of the founders of Wounded Warrior Project. Yeah, with a backpack with a logo on it that I actually wear on my lapel. It's one warrior carrying another. And then the words Wounded Warrior Project, which I instantly related to that because, hey, I was just the guy on the top of that logo a week ago. And okay, Wounded Warrior Project, I guess I'm a wounded warrior. And if I had the bag right now, we'd all take for granted what was inside. There was a CD player and some CDs. There were shorts and a t-shirt. But I had just been wearing nothing but this paper-thin, very flattering hospital gown for the past 7 days, and it was something that I could put on to feel human again. There were calling cards to call home. Who remembers calling cards? Yeah. Young people, long distance used to be expensive, and then people, if they wanted you to call them, they'd give you these prepaid cards, and then you had to use those. They might be in a museum somewhere. Look it up. There were notes from grateful Americans saying thank you for your service and your sacrifice. A deck of playing cards. There were socks in there. I didn't really need those, but they were in there. It's the most significant gift I've ever received. And throughout my time, the Wounded Warrior Project was every step of the way, and still are actually in my life. But I learned a lot in my 2 years at Walter Reed and my 32 different surgeries there. I saw that being met with adversity, especially catastrophic adversity, can take people out. But what I learned is that adversity is the greatest incubator for growth on the planet. Like I had to take that opportunity of who am I and who am I supposed to be, and was able to turn it on its ear and be better than I ever was. Like I used that as a moment to actually reshape my whole life. And I'm forever grateful for that time at Walter Reed and my involvement with Wounded Warrior Project. And then I moved on and I left my job in pharmaceutical sales because I just wanted to give back and do more. I wound up at the PGA Tour doing all sorts of different military appreciation programs and raising millions of dollars for other military nonprofits. And then I got to work at Wounded Warrior Project. Spent 7 years helping grow that organization from a $10 million organization that served a small group of people to a $300 million organization that served a generation of wounded warriors and their families. And then, in my time at Wounded Warrior Project, I learned a lot of stats. I learned that 400,000 people live with the invisible wounds of war, PTSD. And I didn't identify with that because I didn't have PTSD. Well, yeah, I had the symptoms and all that, but PTSD is a diagnosis that a doctor has to give you, and I wasn't going to see a head doctor. No, not this guy. And I learned that 320,000 people live with a traumatic brain injury, and I identify with that because I have one. It's much better now than it was 12 years ago, but I have this really great built-in excuse for forgetting things. Dan, you missed my birthday. Oh, I'm so sorry. I got a brain injury. And they're like, oh, man, shoot, my bad, I'm sorry. Yeah, you should be. And then I learned that 53,000 live with the physical wounds of war, and I identify with that because I had to put on 2 prosthetic legs every morning. But then I learned a statistic that I never understood. I learned that 22 veterans a day take their own life. And I didn't get it. I thought, oh, maybe they're the weak ones. I don't even know what that means, but maybe they're the weak ones. But then it started to be my friends. And I still didn't get it. Until 4 years ago. I had to have another surgery. It was surgery 36. And unlike all my other surgeries, this one, I got my surgery at Walter Reed and came home alone. My older daughter, she was now 18, and she was in the Army herself. I had a 3-year-old daughter now who I was co-parenting with my wife because we got a divorce, and I couldn't even take care of her because I was one swollen leg hopping around on one prosthetic and 2 crutches, can't chase a 3-year-old up and down steps. I couldn't do all the things that I had learned to cope with the invisible wounds of war because they were all active, physical things like riding a bike or playing golf or climbing a mountain. Like I got to summit Mount Kilimanjaro with 3 other amputees from 3 different wars. 3 men from 3 wars standing on the top of the world's tallest freestanding mountain put a lot of things in perspective for me. Yeah, I learned that anything is possible. But I couldn't do those things. I couldn't ride my bike. I couldn't go for a run. I was at home alone, and I was falling apart, and the invisible wounds were like creeping in, and I couldn't fall asleep at night. And then when I did, I'd wake up with nightmares. Then I'd take a handful of Benadryl and chase it down with whiskey just to hope to get back to sleep. And when I did, I just was hoping I didn't wake up. I wasn't suicidal, but I was on the road. I understood. And then I called a friend of mine because I wasn't going to call Wounded Warrior Project. I thought they'd overreact and send in a SWAT team or something. So I was like, no, I'm going to call a friend. And I dialed her up and was telling her this whole story and how I'm suffering. And she said, Dan, you need some yoga in your life. And I was so mad. I was like, that's the dumbest thing you've ever said to me. Like, I wasn't a yoga teacher then. That was all the choice words were coming out, and she wasn't taking them personally, thank God. But she said, no, she saw how much, I was a no for yoga. She said, well, what about meditation? And I was like, yeah, I tried that before. I suck at it. Steve Jobs was cool. Like, he meditated. Gandhi seemed amazing, right? Like, oh, if Gandhi could do it, whoa, like, I'd love to learn how to meditate. So she actually came and taught me. And then I started a regular meditation practice in my time off from work. And then the quality of my thoughts improved, and all those negative thoughts went away just from the act of being present. 20 minutes twice a day. It was amazing for me. Absolutely amazing. Like, meditation changed my whole life. And then I said, hey, well, what about, I called her to say thank you, right? Because I'm about to go back to work. I got my new prosthetic leg on. I'm so excited about life. I called her to say thanks, and she said, hey, I think you owe me some yoga. And then I was like, oh, I couldn't get out of it. How do I do this? So I agreed to 3 private lessons. 3. Private, not with people, not with you weird yogis in the room. I know there's some of you out there. And I remember, I committed to the first lesson, and I'm like, well, I'm an all or nothing type of guy, so I got to go to Lululemon. So I went into Lululemon, and then my man card jumped out of my wallet and was like, wait, bro, what are you doing? So I went in, and then I refinanced my house to get a pair of shorts and a shirt. And I bought a yoga mat, and I showed up to yoga, and I'm in this yoga thing, and she's making me do all these poses, and I'm physically hurting, and I'm trying to get into them, and I'm dying, and it's painful. I feel weird, and she's saying these stupid things like root down to rise up. And I'm like, what does that even mean? And she's saying press down the 4 corners of your foot. And I'm like, I don't have a foot. And I'm throwing blocks, and I'm so mad. I'm so irritated. And I left, and I was like, I'm never doing yoga again. Driving home, calling her every name in the book. Oh, she's going to get it. And then she called me later that night to schedule the second lesson. And right about the time I was going to tell her exactly where to put that lesson, I remembered I committed to 3. So I showed up. And it was the same thing all over again. Rocking and moving, root down to rise up. I'm like, shut, you say it one more time. Say that one more time and watch what happens. She was a newer yoga teacher too, but she was hanging in there. And I got so frustrated, I said, can I just try this with my legs off? And she looked at me, and her eyes were saying, no, 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 What am I going to tell you to do with your feet then? Like, But her mouth said, yeah, let's do it. So I was taking my legs off and throwing them to the side, like so angry. And what you guys need to know is nobody got to see me with my legs off. Nobody. They were like my best feature, and when they were blown off, like I had to deal with that, like the loss of ego, like that whole thing, like the shame of watching my legs shrivel up and deteriorate with the scars and atrophy, like all of it. But then I got these new prosthetics, and they were cool again. Because then I could beat people in golf with, I actually never lost a golf game. I mean, people have shot lower scores than me, but they didn't win, because when it was over, I'm like, oh, you feel really good about beating a guy with no legs? And then shuts them right up. It's so great. Yeah, I got that back, and I'd go to grocery, and like kids stare, right? You're in the grocery store and kids stare, and like if that ever happens to you, and you're the mom or dad, like don't be the one that's like, stop looking. Like just let them go. Because every time I see that happen, because they're just curious, I'm like, yeah, that's cool, right? And they're like, yeah, what happened? I'm like, I didn't eat my vegetables. And their mom's like, yes. And I'm like, call me. So great. But now here I am, I'm taking them off, and I'm like a fish out of water. I don't know what to do, and I'm on my yoga mat, and my yoga mat's out this way, and she's behind me looking at me. I can feel her thinking about, what am I going to tell him to do with his feet? But I just kind of got it, and like I said, I'm all or nothing, so I'm like, I'm in now. So I'm getting into this warrior one pose, and I'm spread out on my knees, and I know you're supposed to lengthen, square your hips, reach your arms up. But I'm replaying what she said to me. She was saying things like root down to rise up. What does that even mean? And you guys got to know this. Like, I'm just a dude. Even now as a yoga teacher, like I shoot guns, I eat meat, like very careful where my meat comes from, and I don't eat too much of it. Just calm down, right? But I'm like a dude, and especially then I was like a real dude, like whoa, like that dude. And I would never identify as like the Mother Earth, nature, love, like that granola, tree hugger thing. Nothing wrong with any of that, but that didn't resonate with me. So here I am, I'm on my yoga mat, and I was saying to myself, root down to rise up. So I just imagined roots growing out of my legs. And as I did that and lifted my arms, the earth sent an actual, very real, very, very measurable, very tangible surge of energy through my body, and my arms lifted over my head. It's like light was shooting out of my hands. It was like the earth was saying, Dan, where have you been for the last 10 years? It was the most significant, profound moment in my life. What I realized was that lack of connection to the earth was keeping me from connection everywhere in my life. I used to say that my marriage was a casualty of the war, but my marriage was a casualty of connection to her and to everyone. And then when I got that back, my life was more inspired than ever. And I learned how to modify every pose and every transition. And by the end of my third lesson, I was enrolled in yoga teacher training. And whether it is connection or a reestablishment of connection or those little brown bottles that you guys know so well, the greatest gifts come from the earth. Like, I know that now. And I learned through my yoga teacher training that asana, the physical practice of yoga, is what prepares our body for meditation. So it was even because meditation got me to yoga, then I realized that yoga gets me to more meditation. And I got so excited that like my meditation practice got deeper and deeper, and I found that that is the one really powerful tool that we have in this life, is the ability to connect inwardly through taking time to meditate. So that said, I prepared a gift, a free gift for you. A slide should come up. So I prepared a free meditation for you. So everybody take out your phones right now. Just take them out, your phones. I know they're supposed to be on silent or whatever, but take them out and text the word meditate to 58885. Yeah, and then you're going to get another text back that says, ask for your email. So check this out. I'm not going to sell you anything. I'm not going to get you on some email list and do all that. It's just, look, this is for you. I made this for you, and it's a meditation on manifesting goals. I've used it on myself. I have some very well-known athlete friends of mine that uses a very similar meditation that I created. It works if you do it. And that's my gift to you for being the awesome human beings that you are. Yeah, and the one thing I just want you to know is that inspiration, right? We all find inspiration in everyday life. You're here because you were inspired by someone who shared oils with you, who shared this healthier lifestyle with you. But inspiration leads to goals, but goals without the work don't mean anything. So this meditation will help you get present to the work that's needed. Really. This has changed my whole life. Who I am, who I ever will be driven by the practice of looking inside. Because I'm going to tell you, to each of you, you're perfect exactly the way you are. And exactly the way you aren't. Literally, you need to know that. You were born with everything that you need to create the life that you want. And I know just by the fact that you're present here tonight, that the life that you want will make the world a better place. And guys, I gotta say this, I'm gonna leave you with this. It's been my greatest honor to have worn the uniform in service to my country. And the world. And I'm just so fortunate and so blessed that I've found a way to continue to serve. This, being on this stage, is a part of my yoga and sharing experiences with you that hopefully you'll get something from and do something with. My last question for you is, how are you being inspired to serve? Thank you.
Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome back to the stage, Russell Butters.
This is my fight song. Take back my life song. Prove I'm alright song.
Was that amazing or what? Dan Nevins, another round of applause. So who is ready for one epic street party tonight? So I don't know where the camera is, but can somebody zoom in? I just want to clarify, these are not stretchy pants. These are tight jeans. And I was back there trying to do some yoga, and I ripped a knee out.
Meu nome é Josimar, eu moro aqui na comunidade Santa Maria. Eu desde dos 14 anos que eu trabalho em Copaíba, eu estou com 37 anos, todo o tempo o meu trabalho é Copaíba.
Das árvores ganhamos presente que nos dá vida, a vida das árvores. Das árvores ganhamos ar e sombra, saúde e sabedoria, dom que vem das árvores. Das árvores, das árvores.
Bem, meu nome é Josimar, eu moro aqui na comunidade Santa Maria. Eu desde dos 14 anos que eu trabalho em Copaíba, eu estou com 37 anos, todo o tempo o meu trabalho é Copaíba.
Das árvores ganhamos um presente que nos dá vida, a vida das árvores. Das árvores ganhamos ar e sombra, saúde e sabedoria, um dom que vem das árvores. Das árvores, das árvores.
O cara trabalhar aqui porque aqui é perto, mas tem dia que a gente vai longe no meio dessa mata aí, chega só de tardezinho em casa.
Você vem tirar óleo dessa água?
Não, cada mês.
Cada mês?
Às vezes ela dá meio litro, menos de meio litro, conforme o tempo, né? Quando a gente passar mais tempo a estonhar, mais a óleo ela dá.
We have a lot of different compounds in copaiba, just like we do all of the essential oils. But we have one compound that's dominant, beta-caryophyllene. Now this is important because it has strong effect and benefit for helping the body to sustain normal inflammatory responses. This is a keystone of our health. This is a keystone of what many of us will deal with on an ongoing basis. We have other oils that have similar chemistry, and in fact that exact same compound. Black pepper and melissa are good examples. Even oregano has some of this compound, but by comparison, very small amounts. That makes this oil unique. Additional benefits that it has is it's really good for skin. It can be calming and soothing in a number of different ways. I'm excited for people to have their own experience with copaiba, and I hope that they develop as much enthusiasm for it as I personally have, because I believe this will become one of the most beneficial essential oils that we have in doTERRA.
Bem, meu nome é Josimar, eu moro aqui na comunidade Santa Maria. Eu desde dos 14 anos que eu trabalho em Copaíba, eu estou com 37 anos, todo o tempo o meu trabalho é Copaíba.
Das árvores ganhamos um presente que nos dá vida, a vida das árvores. Das árvores